Hello, folks. Welcome back to the Two Stewards Show. My name is Mark, and I'm here with...
My name is Brent.
And I'm here with my name is Brent, and we're continuing our conversation.
We're trying to cool our jets a bit because we were just talking a lot off the air about
we get worked up about things.
what's going on in the world.
Yes, and we're going... Calm down. We're going to talk about ADUs again. Last time we talked about accessory dwelling units and a whole bunch of notes about that, how to do it specifically. And we have, you've got an update here, Brent. Maybe not an update, but just a note.
Okay, I actually read the Hamilton website because I think on the last two episodes, we're like, oh yeah, you can do units. But now we read the website and it actually says you can do up to 4 dwelling units on most low-density residential properties.
As of right.
So, and we were just going back and forth about how difficult that is to get approved or how easy it is. But they do allow 4 dwelling units.
Yeah, it's allowed. So, and they actually have examples. Oh, you want to pull that up?
Yeah, I got to hear.
There we
go. So if you're watching on YouTube, or however else you're watching this, if you're peering in the window, we got on the screen, just the city of Hamilton has a quick diagram of different house configurations that are permitted. And so you have like a principal dwelling, which is the main house, then you have an additional dwelling unit. And they get so confusing because they call the additional dwelling unit can be in your basement, it can be in the loft, it could be in the backyard. And if it's in the backyard, it's called a detached additional dwelling unit. So it's very technical words. Like you could use a different word.
Everybody has their own flavor.
Like a basement suite, loft suite, or a garage. I don't know. But anyways, they have like the main house and then the basement unit. So that's 2. And then you could have it where the main house has like a loft above. So it's 2. And then you could also have, and all these ones are like as of right?
Yeah. So a duplex with an ADU on the back.
Yeah, and a duplex with a detached building, right? ADU. Yeah, and then, or you could have a triplex. Yeah. Or a triplex with a detached ADU.
I like that one the best.
A fourplex.
Yeah, a fourplex. Which is actually, I mean, there are a lot of actually the older, bigger homes in Hamilton that kind of have done that. May not be legal or have the potential to do it. So now if you have one of those homes, you could put in 4 units with no variances. You got to get your permits and stuff. Yeah. But you can just go do it.
Yeah. So the zoning might permit it. And when it says like 4 units are allowed on most low residential properties, like the zoning might allow for it, but the limitations are going to be all your setbacks and your height and your parking and your fire exit and egress and all of these different things. Right. So, while it might be permitted, it might be
it might not be practical,
cost prohibitive to actually implement and put those units in. But when you're looking for properties, if you can find something that works, that's currently being underutilized as 1 or 2 units, and you can put it up to 3 or 4, that's gonna be a huge value add.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
That's a quick update.
There you go. Okay, perfect.
So now we actually know what we're talking about here.
It's still not, but we're getting there. Okay, so let's talk about a few other things. We talked about like how to build the ADU and some salient points around that.
Yeah, we went through the construction process last time.
Yeah.
Just from a high level. And we're actually starting one right now. So we're digging out the pad, and we're getting all ready to go, and then we're going there and looking at it, and the tenant comes out and is like, hey, by the way, like this is the main floor tenant yesterday.
Right.
And they're like, by the way, is that going to be the wall right there? and how high is this thing exactly? Right. And so like they're in a 2-story house. So like they'll be above it. Their bedrooms and their bathroom upstairs will be above the unit, but still on the main floor, their backyard, which is like a paradise with trees and whatever now, and a nice view of the escarpment, has this big unit in the back now. So we had to measure it out and see with the measuring tape in the air, like how high it goes. It's pretty big. Yeah. So, but, I think this is the sort of thing that we like to experience and try out on our own dime and our own projects before we start implementing it for other people. Make sure that we don't run into issues and But yeah, it was kind of surprising. We put the measuring tape in the air and this thing is like, 16 or 18 feet in the air.
It's up there.
Yeah. So the tenants are kind of concerned, right? Because this is something that I had kind of planned, and this is on our list of things to talk about. So I can just go off on this story.
Let's talk about it.
But we're talking about tenant interaction a little bit last time. And so when we built this house, the duplex, like the primary dwelling, we wanted to have, the backyard thing started at least, because we didn't get both permits at the same time.
Right.
It was kind of one thing. We built the house and we're like, oh, we can get a permit for this because it's allowed. So let's do it. Right. So,
and this is just slab on grade, not the basement.
Yeah. Just a slab on grade, 1-bedroom unit in the backyard. But when
with the second floor, like what is this?
No, it's just so it's like 8-foot walls, slab on grade, but it has a peak roof, and then the roof is like a vaulted ceiling inside, right? So it's it's going to be really cool inside, but it might be a little bit of an eyesore for the current tenants, right? But so what I was saying is it'd be nice for the tenants if they could come when they're viewing the house to rent it out, to see the unit, right? And say, okay, well, am I going to want to rent this house if that thing's in the backyard? Yeah. And that was one of the questions that we got recently from somebody too. Like, how does it affect the tenant interaction? I can tell you yesterday.
Not positively.
We had to kind of,
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just the reality of what's happening, right?
Yeah, but I'm also pretty confident that if we were to design it really well, and we have, and once it's built, we'll landscape it really well as well. And like even a small space, like nice landscaping can go a long ways to kind of making the space feel really welcoming and really maybe even bigger. I don't know, but it's definitely going to be pleasant to look at. It's not just going to be like a big wall of whatever white facing you every single morning when you wake up. It's going to be nice, right? So that said, there's still somebody in your backyard that you kind of have to get along with. So
I know. So is this a duplex already?
This is a duplex.
Yeah. So they got downstairs.
The downstairs people are moving in a week or two.
Okay.
So they're coming in, but the way we've designed it. So just to give people a little bit of perspective. So you can do this.
Like a reformed perspective?
Reformed perspective. You can do this on a corner lot, right? Or an interior lot. And an interior lot has like lots on both sides. So it's maybe 50 feet wide and 100 and something feet deep, like a standard lot. But in that case, like you have limited parking at the front, right? Because you only front on one street. Whereas on a corner lot, you front on two streets. So you have option. You could potentially have parking on on opposite sides of the lot, right? Which for tenant usability and design is actually like you could live separate lives, never even see each other, essentially, right? Yeah. Like I park on this street, I never go down that road, and then I just back out and I go to work, and it's as if whatever. Maybe people don't even go out of their house. I don't know, but
I'll just get off track a little bit.
Nice.
No, but where we live next to a house that's on a corner lot.
Yeah.
And it's just a duplex. There's no room for an ADU, but it is, as you said, there's two driveways.
Yeah.
So the one driveway is for the basement tenants.
Yeah.
And they go in and they sit outside sometimes, but they go in their entrance. And then the other side around the corner is for the upstairs tenants, who we never see. Like I've seen them maybe twice in a couple of years when they're bringing groceries in.
They're still alive though.
I guess the landlord goes over there and cuts the grass, so presumably he's checking on them. Yeah, but like they never interact, because we've talked to the basement tenants, right? And they do not interact with them. So kind of reinforces your point.
So you have shared living, and everyone's worried about that, but that is an advantage to have like a corner lot. Yeah, and I guess the disadvantage is you don't have this big backyard,
or even an alleyway.
Yeah,
where
like
people
a through
can go
lot
in.
where it fronts on two streets or one street and an alley.
Yeah.
But where I was going with this is, so if you have an interior lot like we do in this case, like they're going to park in the front, but you can really only fit two spots wide, right? Yeah. And they don't allow tandem parking, but tandem parking is not like when you park in front of each other.
Anyways.
It's not very effective for multi dwelling unit? Like if it's just one unit?
Even for me at home, it's a pain in the butt.
I know, you end up driving the other person's car, right? Like you drive your wife's car, or your husband's car, or whatever, and then you have to adjust the seat, and it's just
these first world problems, I tell you. So hard done by.
Yeah. So in this case with the tenants, like the one unit's going to be parking on the street and walking to the back, right? But so we have designed it so that the basement tenant parks at the front in the driveway, and they have a walkway around the right hand side of the house, and their door is right at the back corner. Yeah. And it's a walkout, so they don't basically have to never go around the other side of the house. Yeah. And the other tenant will go around the other side of the house, and then as soon as they get to the back corner, it's just a walkway to the unit. And then they basically stay on the one, like the left side of the lot, like they're just a walkway, right?
And the upstairs tenants just go in the front.
The main floor tenants, they park in front of the house and they walk right up their steps and they're in, and then they have a deck at the back, and they have kind of
with a lovely view
with a lovely view of all the tenants. But like that's not I mean, where else in the world? Like you go to any other city where there's density and people, like you have to interact with people. So it's just gauging expectations, right? If you're going to be charging a decent amount of rent for the unit, and you want to attract a quality tenant that like is going to be able to pay that rent and, you know, treat the place with a lot of respect, then you might end up sacrificing the tenant quality, the price, or like the number of dwelling units you can fit, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would think with housing crisis, with rents, with everything else, I think, you know, you're building brand new.
What housing crisis?
Yeah, exactly. You'll forgive me if I don't think about a housing crisis. No, but with everything that's going on, right, you're building nice units. Yeah. So people might be like, I don't know, it's a little cramped, whatever. Once they get inside, they're going to be like, wow.
Wow, yeah.
And then probably you will attract the kind of people who are okay with just like living inside. Yeah. And not being outside as much. And maybe the main floor tenants, they can still be on the deck and enjoy it and whatever. Yeah. But I think, you know, as you're doing the showings, those kind of people will gravitate towards the unit.
So that's the kind of things that we're mindful of when we're going to look for properties, but also when we're designing the properties for a maximum density, right? Because you want to achieve the highest and best use for the lot, but you always think, or anyways, I always think about, when I'm in this room, what am I going to be doing? And what am I looking at out the window? And how do I feel? Right. And I'm a sucker for this because I kind of have this design background. So I always think about from the tenant's perspective or the user's perspective. Right. Like I'm paying good money for this experience, and I'm standing in my bedroom and I'm looking at that. Is that okay or not? Right. And so you can kind of prioritize your rooms, right? Like I spend most of my time basically in my common area. Yeah. But to be honest, a lot of people are now having a home office, so they're spending quite a significant amount of time in their home office. Yeah. So how can I optimize that? Like the home office has a good vibe to it. Like I'm content to spend 8 hours of my day, even if it's a basement unit, sitting in this room.
Right. Yeah.
Like so what do I see out the window? Yeah. Right. What do I see when I look out my door? Do I see like, you know, the laundry machine, or do I see, you know, this beautiful like built-in fireplace, and does it feel nice, right? Like, and those are hard, like intangible things to like quantify. Yeah. But they actually add a lot to the value and the experience and the tenant's respect for the place, the tenant's respect for you as a landlord. Yeah. The tenant's value on like what they're actually willing to pay, right? So
it can make all the difference.
Yeah. So then when you're adding a detached accessory dwelling unit, then there's a whole nother set of
because how does that affect unit A versus unit B,
and sight lines, and then now you're dealing with neighbors, right? So what do the neighbors see when they look at this building, right? You want them to enjoy it as well and to benefit. And not only that, it's not just like you want to build this unit in your backyard to maximize your income, but you also have to think about, you want to maximize everyone else's property value too. So can there's ways that you can do it to just build it to like maximize your income. But at the same time, if you boost the value of everyone around you, or right, like there's ways to do it that will help that, and there's ways to do that will hinder that, but that'll boost your value too in the long term.
So in Hamilton, as far as you know, we don't have like a style department or whatever, do we? No, because that's a thing in a lot of cities, right?
Yeah.
Especially where they
St.
have like historical. Oh, is it St. Okay. Yeah, where you have to build in accordance sort of with the flavor of the neighborhood or with an approved design at the very least.
So I don't have experience in Hamilton with like a new build, the process of new build. But in St. Catharines, the one, when we went through that process, they have a design review committee. Mm-hmm. So if you propose to the city to build a certain building, they will have like kind of a prerequisite you have to pass through the design review panel, and it's like a handful of people, and they basically say like, and I think in our case it had to be brick up to the top of the first floor.
Oh, okay.
It's a 2-story house, but it couldn't just be brick on the front. It had to be brick all the way around. Okay. Right? So like that has a direct impact on the cost.
Oh yeah. It's expensive.
Yeah. And it's just some guy or a group of people in their little committee, like 3 or 4 people who just say, you know what? I looked on Google Street View and across the road the guy has brick. So I think you should spend $40,000 bricking your house. No offense to bricklayers, because it looks amazing now and it's nice. It's going to last forever, but it's also way more expensive than.
I think there's a revitalized brick factory in Hamilton now.
Okay.
You know the one on Lawrence?
Yeah.
They've. I thought they were building something else, but I think it's just a new brick factory.
Brick factory. Okay.
Because there's new skids of bricks, so maybe price of bricks will come down.
Yeah, we just go over there. It's a short walk from here.
They're selling them right from there. You can go buy a skid of bricks. So, anyways, that's a little bit off track. No, but if I think about, you go to Europe, for example, like going to Holland, right? They have a lot of rules around like what you can build and how it looks. And it's like, there's a lot of rules.
Which is nice.
But it looks nice when you're driving through these neighborhoods, right? Because the style is all the same. It all flows, and so I mean.
But there's a price to pay for that, right? Because if the city wants everything to look nice, well, everyone's gonna have to spend more on building it, and it limits the amount of people who would even take on a job. So you're gonna limit the number of houses or units being built. So if you're
there's always always
there's trade-offs.
The law of unintended consequences, right? Yeah. You might make it look nice, but it's going to cost more, which means that whole neighborhood is going to cost more.
Yeah.
As it densifies. So, and I mean, do you increase sort of ghettoization then? Because downtown, maybe you don't have those same rules. So now you can build bigger, much denser, whatever you want, which doesn't look as nice, which attracts a different style of tenant. My eyes have kind of been
open in the last little bit too to how many building projects there are out there that don't go through permits, that just don't abide by any of the rules, that just kind of like, I know it's out there.
Have you been to my house recently?
It's out there, but when you start driving around and talking to people and meeting people and then looking at their houses and looking at who's living in the house, right? We're going to view properties and stuff, and it's just like, man, how did you build this? Like, that's still standing? Why would you want to live in that? You risk your life every night going to sleep and the thing could fall over. But it's a dwelling unit, right? And people pay like $500, $700 a month to live in that bedroom because there's nowhere else to live, and that's the cheapest thing. And they're right downtown or whatever.
Well, and they don't know either, right?
But they also don't care. Like, it's not their house. It's not if it falls over, they go to the next one.
As long as they're not doing it.
But the owners are just saying, well, I could spend hundreds of thousands of dollars doing this legally and fix it up, or I could just spend $10,000, put up a piece of this and like styrofoam, and now I have 4 bedrooms and I rent them out for $500, right?
Yeah.
But it's almost like the city is kind of turning a blind eye to some of this stuff because they need people off the streets and into houses.
I don't know. Are they like, do they know about it?
Right? I can think of
not. I don't know. I could like even in my neighborhood where like someone has basically gutted a house.
Yeah. Okay. I'm talking a little bit more downtown. Like,
okay. But I'm just thinking like, unless one of the neighbors had called to report them, like it was nice. They did, it was good work, but I'm pretty sure they did the whole thing without any permits.
Yeah.
But like, how would the city know unless a neighbor called in?
Yeah.
They're not driving around looking for like piles of drywall.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Well, and the same thing downtown. I mean,
don't say that too loud. They might hire somebody as the pile of drywall guy driver. We're hiring.
Yeah.
Oh, no, minimum wage just went up. Anyways, that's a different conversation. We're talking about ADUs.
ADUs, yes. Okay, so yeah, design. But that's interesting because that's not the first thing I kind of think of.
Yeah.
And maybe like the interior design, so it's nice, you get good tenants, but you're talking about exterior.
Holistic.
Yeah, holistic. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because that's the way I think about it, because you're, on the one hand, you're just creating a dwelling unit so that you can get a person in there and rent it, and then like the investment side of it, right? Where you're just, I spend this much money on this house, and then I get a dwelling unit that brings in this much more money, and that makes sense. But if you just take that perspective solely, and you don't look at, like, this is a physical thing. It's a house. There's people involved, right? Like the people have to pay you. They have to have a good relationship, right? It's not just surface level numbers, right? So I think investors who are just about the numbers, and the numbers have to work and the numbers have to make sense. Yes, but that's not all of the picture, right? The other part of it is, like, you're a human being. You're going to own this for 20, 30 years. What kind of lifestyle do you want to have with these people that are renting it? Like, what kind of interactions do you want to have? What, so many other factors that you have to consider, right? Yeah. And that ultimately comes down to, like, the house itself that you purchase, what it currently is, and then what you can make it into. And then the limiting factor there is how much it costs to go from what you bought it as to what you envision it to be to attract the kind of people you want, right?
Well, I think part of this comes down to stewardship principles as well.
Yeah.
Right? Not just make the most money. Like, yes, you should maximize your value.
Yeah.
But there's so many other things. Like, you talk about highest and best use as a maxim, right? In the real estate world. But that's kind of a Christian stewardship principle as well. All the things you talked about, right? Building good relationships with your tenants, and making it a nice part of the neighborhood, and even just like, you have the ability to, like, you're doing this once, so you can make it like really nice and do like the best job you could possibly do without spending money frivolously. But like, how much more does it cost to have something well designed? Right? Maybe it costs you a little bit more in landscaping and I mean, when you're like doing the design, you have to do a design anyways. Yeah. So doing a bad design versus a good one probably costs you the same. Yeah. And there may be a few features that are a little bit different, but like just being able to take pride in what you're doing, right? Which I think you guys do. You can sit back and look at a thing and go like, this is nice. I could live there.
I could live there. I would want to own that for 30 years.
Yeah, exactly.
I plan on doing that, right? So I think that's the mindset too when we invest, and when like we help clients invest too, is like, this is long term, right? Yeah. You're committed, and that's the way real estate like grows. And there are ways to use real estate to make money quickly and then exit. Yeah. But then, like we talked about before, you have to reinvest. If your money's losing value right away, you have to deploy it again into something else. And that becomes a bit more of a business and a full-time occupation, or at least takes up a lot more of your time and mental space to continuously run through that cycle.
Yeah, I mean, you're making a living. Yeah. Right? Or you can do well, you can make a really good living, but that's your job. Yeah. As opposed to tenant management and stuff like that. And some people don't want to do that. And some people have skills in that area as well, right? If you're like a really good builder and you can do, I'm just thinking of like someone who can do it themselves, like that's a valid thing, right? Yeah. But even in like with that, you can either do a good flip or you can do a bad flip, right? You can just put lipstick on and gloss over electrical issues and structural issues and stuff like that. Yeah. Or you can do a really good job that you can take pride in selling to somebody else. So, either way, there's Christian principles and stewardship principles.
And when the market goes up, like it did a year or two ago, as it was really coming up. Like anybody can make money doing that.
Yeah.
And like, you don't have to be a good builder. You don't have to be qualified, or you can gloss over the electrical issues, and the guy buying it might even know about it and not care because it's just a frenzy out there, right?
Yeah.
But now when the market's softening and there's still demand, but people can have a little bit more scrutiny, a little bit more time. Like, people aren't getting rewarded for that kind of behavior anymore, flipping houses with it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, if they're doing a good flip, yeah. But
yeah.
And that's always been even when the market wasn't crazy, that's always been a thing, right? Flippers have a bad name.
Yeah. What's their name?
Flipper. Okay. Isn't that a dolphin? I think it was a show. Flipper the dolphin.
Before my time, Mark. Before my time. The one thing I wanted to chat quickly about too was prefab versus build on site, and this is a big thing because I've talked to a number of people about ADUs on different scales. So some people, it's just like, I just have one. Like, I live here. I just want a unit in my backyard. Can I do this? How is it going to work? And then other people who are bigger investors, they're like, look, I got 50 properties and I could put one of these in 20 backyards.
Right.
So what should my options be? Like, if I go out and get permits for all these, would it be more cost effective to just do like a prefab thing versus building it on site, like traditional kind of conventional construction, just slab on grade, stick frame this thing and then build it, right? So we've kind of done a bit of digging on that, and like the cost of these prefab houses are coming down, and there is more options. So that market is slowly starting to get some traction, and I've heard like in Northern Ontario, for example, or Northern BC, I think it is, on some of the native reserves, the government's giving like grants for these companies to come in and basically just, drop these houses everywhere.
Right.
So there's a bit of like scale happening there, and they're testing out the systems and seeing how they work in kind of a harsh climate and getting, some use case going. But inside the city boundary on like rental properties, the one thing that I think we should keep in mind when we're looking at the difference between the two is both of them require some sort of foundation and site servicing. And this keeps coming up like time and again because every single lot is different. And even if you apply to the city with your lot, like you might get one plans examiner or what different, like you might have different opinions too on how exactly they want to see everything coming out. It's a little bit new, so it's tricky to say, okay, like this is the best way to do it, right?
Yeah.
Because like if you do a prefab unit, right, it's a pre-built house and you can just crane it over the house and drop it on something, but you have to drop it on something and it has to connect to the sewer lines and the water lines and hydro or gas or whatever, right? So that's kind of that's everybody's problem. You always have to service the lot, and or service the unit. And that cost is it varies.
It's kind of fixed.
It varies widely based on like where the dwelling unit is, where your services come in, right? So it's hard to kind of just make a cookie cutter solution to, okay, well, I'm going to just put 20 of these in all my backyards, unless they're identical lots and the houses are here and the services are here. And like, it's hard to just say, okay, well, the cost is going to be this. And then,
well, it could cost you maybe $5,000 if it's super easy, or it could cost you $30,000.
Yeah. So the minute you get into cutting the road and like tying into the road, like the services, I think we talked about that last time, the services under the street. Now you're into a road cut permit, excavation permit, and you have to actually pay for the sidewalk to be repaired and the road, right? So, but yeah, prefab versus stick frame. I think the jury's still out on the numbers on that, but we're choosing stick frame because we see advantages to custom designing the unit itself to the lot, given the tenant interaction. Basically, like maximizing the space you have. Yeah. And designing it well so that where's my outdoor storage? Where are my sight lines? Where is the garbage? Where's the parking, right? And that's something you can't really control if you're just getting a prefab unit dropped in.
No, not if you've got, if you're building in the city, basically, where you've got, smaller lots, shall we say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Do you what is the cost of a prefab home?
Man, I've heard like anywhere from like 110,000 or 115,000 to like 250,000. So
yeah, depending on
usually companies will have multiple models, and you could buy the X number of square feet unit or like the double one, and then some of them even stack.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Like Lego?
Yeah. They're kind of like Lego, except for
for adults.
Yeah, very expensive.
I don't know. Have you looked at Lego lately?
Lego's pretty expensive. I don't know.
I could buy a Lego set, like a Star Wars one, or I could build an ADU. That reminds me, how many U's are in accessory dwelling unit?
I don't know, like 2?
80.
80
U's.
Oh, you were thinking long and hard about that one.
Oh, yeah, no, I had to hold that one in for quite a while. It's your dad joke of the day, folks.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so that's interesting because I've been looking at park model units.
Okay, what are those?
And yeah, it's not, I don't think, as big of a thing here in Canada. They do exist.
Like, you don't live in the States, right? You always talk about the States, but you live here in Canada.
Half. I'm halfway there.
Okay.
Living on a prayer. No, but as we're looking at, U.S. property and sort of maximizing use, right? Park model units are a very interesting proposition because it's like it's a prefab home essentially, but it's on a trailer chassis. And it comes with a VIN. So it's actually a vehicle identification number. So it's actually classed as an RV. So you don't need to get, like, wherever you are, you don't need to get permits, right? If you're going to even put like a mobile home, like a trailer, you need to, city has to approve that, et cetera, et cetera. But with these things, you don't really. You might have to get a permit for the electricity and the like the sewer hookup and water.
Yeah.
But other than that, you can just plunk the thing, because if you had an RV, right, you could just drive that into your home because it's a vehicle.
Yeah.
You don't need a permit for a vehicle. So that's it's an interesting idea. You typically would need a little more space.
Yeah.
To add one of these, right? Because you're
driving
more
of
it
a
in.
rural lot.
Yeah, rural would be a better option, but that's if you do have a rural lot with a bigger, like with some property. It's not a bad option. So we've been kind of looking at, and the cost of those, you're probably $75,000 at the cheapest US.
Yeah.
Up to, we've seen $120,000, $130,000. And I'm sure you can do more, but like, there's some nice, really nice.
Are they limited on size though? Because they're on a chassis and they have to be. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you have some that are like, that have a second story.
Right.
Right. So you got to watch out for bridges, I guess, on the way. But, yeah, it's limited to what the chassis could hold, I guess, right? But you can add a deck and stuff around them, as well, or at the minimum.
So that gets into something we wanted to talk about quickly, which is like the strategy you use when you're renting these things out, right? Because you're looking at possibly Airbnb, not necessarily just long-term tenants. So
no, but you could. I mean, I don't know. Why couldn't you?
Or.
Well, because they're the same size as some of the units you're talking about.
Yeah, how many bedrooms are in there?
I've seen like 3-bedroom units.
Wow.
Right? They're like they're tight because you're on a trailer chassis.
Yeah.
But designed fairly well. I mean, maybe you should look at them. I don't have the design pedigree, but
if they're on Pinterest, they're great.
Yeah. So I mean, would you want to live? I don't know. People live in trailers.
Yeah.
That's very common in the States. So living in one of these might not be so bad for a short-term stay. Like, absolutely, I would stay in one of these because some of them are really nice. Long-term, I don't know, but possibility.
Yeah.
So I got you off track there.
Well, we're looking at long-term rentals, right?
Yep.
And I guess long-term. What is long-term cutoff? Like 6 months or more? No, a year or more.
Well, okay, so that's a good question, right? When you're designing units, you're thinking about the tenants.
Yeah.
So what is your ideal length of stay for a tenant?
Yeah.
And then what kind of tenant is that?
So just a disclaimer, like we've never actually rented one of these detached ADUs out before.
Yeah.
So all of this
You've rented a lot of...
We've rented a ton of other stuff.
Basement units, for example.
Yeah, main floors, whatever, other kinds of units. But from my experience, what would I predict or what would I want? Yeah. So...
well, even with your other homes, I'm sure it's probably going to be a similar tenant profile, right?
Yeah. So we do have a certain tenant profile in mind, and it kind of depends on the unit itself. But generally speaking, I think we talked about this before, but people with an exit strategy. Yeah. So somebody who is, a lot of times it's actually young couples, or young. So like this last unit is two guys. They're a couple years out of university. They've got good jobs, and they're gonna, like, the one guy's working here and the other guy's working there, and they're gonna eventually, probably in 3 years, both move on and get like their own house, or get married or something, right? Yeah. Maybe that's a bit of a high expectation, but I'm not gonna judge anybody's personal life plans, whatever. But yeah, but they both have kind of this exit strategy, right? Same thing with a lot of our other units is, we are here for this reason, and then we're planning to do this in 2 to 3, 4 years, 5 years even, right? But it's the people who have in their head, like, I'm using your services, like your rental options to serve me for this purpose. Yeah. And then they have a purpose and a vision in their life themselves, right? So a lot of times people are just, I just need a place to live forever. And that's great, but it's also very limiting as a landlord in Ontario. And
why? Expand on that a little bit.
Because the Landlord Tenant Board, and I was chatting with a buddy in Alberta who does tons of rentals, and they can renew the lease at whatever rental rate they want, because in Alberta they don't have the same restrictions that we do here, right? Yeah. Rent controls.
So for the duration of the lease, it is what you've agreed upon.
So if you sign a 1-year lease, it's $1,800 a month. But if the market value of the rent changes to $2,100 a month during that 1-year period, and then the guy wants to renew for another year, you have the right, you don't have to, but you have the right in Alberta to just say, no, like we'll be willing to renew with you. It's $2,100 a month based on the market comparables and what we would expect to get. If they choose to move out, then the landlord can rent it for $2,100, right, to someone else. But if he overestimates it, then might be vacant a month, right? So it kind of goes both ways, and there's a little bit of like, you can't bluff the tenant out of the unit, because then you're stuck for that month and you end up renting it for less, right? Yeah. But on the other hand, like, that tenant might not care to move out. Like, it's moving costs and it's inconvenience, but at the same time, like, all the other units around are the same price because there's no rent control and people just charge what market value is. Yeah. Right. Whereas in Ontario, you have to be mindful that, like, every time, you sign a lease, that person could be there indefinitely. Yeah. And you can only raise the rent at whatever the government says.
You have to extract the maximum amount of rent possible.
Is that what you do?
Well, I mean, is that not kind of the strategy or the mindset when you're renting in Ontario?
Yeah. And it's almost, I feel like the government's kind of, by this policy, created a bit of a frenzy amongst landlords. Like, you kind of cripple the landlord's ability to operate the property and maintain it if you just say, by the way, costs of everything in the world have gone up. If you want to replace your roof or your furnace or this or that, or you have to redo the driveway, you want to maintain your property to any nice standard, the costs are way higher now, and property tax goes up, utilities and whatever. But by the way, your rent has to stay the same. So your income has to stay the same. So if you want to continue owning this asset, by the way, your income's capped at this and your expenses are doubled. So So you got to be really mindful when you're investing that you're actually able to charge sufficiently that you can keep the property and keep it maintained. But
well, and for most landlords, what that means is you charge the absolute most that you possibly could, even if you got to wait an extra month or two to get that tenant. Exactly. As opposed to like, let's get something reasonable and then we can just talk about it down the road, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to,
and the other side of it too is repairs. You also have to think about, is that tenant going to stay there forever, or are they going to move out?
Yeah.
And that's like we've kind of chosen to go the route where we want people in for 3 years or whatever. That's kind of our window, right?
Yeah. And then
move out. Yeah.
Yeah, because one of the things that we'll talk to people about with a midterm rental strategy is that you're not always, depending on how the rents are, right? So your short-term rents kind of lag long-term rents.
Yeah.
Which in long-term rents kind of lag house prices, right? House prices go up, rents don't immediately go up.
Yeah.
But because people have to buy them and get into the places, and then once they're ready to rent them out, so there might be a 6 month, this isn't scientific, but there might be a 6 month window.
I think it's 7 months, right? 7 months?
What?
And not 6 months, I think it's 7 months.
Oh, I'm just saying from... Oh, you're making a joke now. Okay. But let's say there's a 6 month lag. Yeah, that's right. You're newer.
Yeah, I'm newer. I'm not good at it.
There's a lag between, house prices going up and rents going up. Yeah. And whether that's 6 months or 7, whatever that is, right? But then there's also, we found that there is a lag between long-term rents going up and short-term rents going up.
Right.
Just in the market in general. So that could be another few months.
So long-term rents take longer to go up, or they go up?
No, they'll go up before short-term rents will.
Okay.
Short-term rents are generally correspond, we've seen, to long-term rents.
Okay.
It can correspond with they do correspond with house prices as well, but I've seen more of a correlation to long-term rents. Midterm rent is somewhere behind that as well.
Right.
So sometimes when you're doing a midterm rental, it's not much more than market rent. Right. Generally, it is more because you're including furnishings and utilities, and then just the no guarantee of having a renter for a long time, right? But one of the tools that we kind of use to illustrate to people the value of a midterm rental is that even if you were renting at the same as long-term rent after you account for furnishings and utilities, in the long run, you will still do much better because you're staying on top of market rent.
Yeah.
And so this would apply to rent-controlled areas like Ontario, right?
Yeah.
Where you have the ability to move that rent up every 6 months or so.
Yeah.
And we've got like a case study with the place that we owned where we did midterm rental, and it was a significant difference, like 40 grand or something over 50 grand over 3 years in net income. Because simply you can adjust your rent that way.
So like landlords buy these rent controls. Like landlords are kind of between a rock and a hard place, right? You have the tenants who, you might love your tenants and they might be paying and it's working out great, but you also can't afford to keep the place, right?
Well, especially now, people are pinched, right?
Yeah.
And there's, you see there's no sympathy for landlords, right? Because people will say, well, whatever. A, landlords shouldn't profit off of places, and B, like, if you made a mistake, that's your problem.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, no, it's kind of everybody's problem because they're going to
sell the house and the tenant's still living there and nobody's going to buy it because they can't raise the rent.
Yeah. Or a family's going to buy it for a lower price and kick that tenant out because they want to live there. So,
and whereas that tenant's going to ultimately pay more somewhere else anyways because they're going to pay market value.
So you can close your eyes to this and say landlords are parasites and whatever else, but the fact is landlords provide almost like 90% of rentals in Canada anyways, right? It's not like nobody else is providing rental space. Government's not building it. There are some organizations that are doing affordable housing, but just housing in general, rentals, is private landlords. Anyways, that's my little rant
we were
about that. But it's a good point. You're talking about your tenant profile, right? So you're kind of looking for these upwardly mobile tenants who are not going to be in your place long term so that you can increase your rents periodically.
But specifically with ADUs, we want upwardly mobile. They're going to move and they're going to increase the rent. But we also on the flip side, don't want frequent changeovers. And that's something that
every year is too much, right?
We haven't necessarily tried this out, but we're not really inclined to either. Like, I don't want to have a house that's a duplex with an Airbnb that frequently changes over like tenants in the backyard.
Yeah.
And just too much of a learning curve for the tenants and too much hassle. And it's a lot of stress on the tenants in the main building who are kind of longer term stay. This is their home. You have people come in and out. You never know what to expect. And they might be great and it might work well, but then you always have this anxiety that's kind of, am I paying this much to live here? And I always have to deal with that.
Yeah.
Right. And that's just always, it's almost a reason for them to want to move out. Right.
Well, unless you had like the scenario where you've got units that are kind of separate, like a corner lot, where they never have to see each other. You could even put a fence up so they literally never see the other people, right? So that would be an option. But no, it's just because a lot of people don't think about tenant selection, right? We've talked about it a lot on the podcast.
Border wall you were talking between Egypt and Gaza.
Yeah.
That kind of offense?
Maybe not. That would be offensive.
Yeah, but, military might.
No, but anyways, tenant selection is important, and that starts with design, right? Because clearly, if it's even with basements, right, a 2-bedroom place, you're really not marketing to families.
No.
Who will probably stay for a longer term. It's going to be, like you said, younger couples or a bunch of friends who live together.
Yeah.
And the same would apply to the most accessory dwelling units because they're going to be 1 or 2 bedrooms, right?
Yeah. Actually, I guess I'm pretty sure it's capped at 2 bedrooms, but you could build 3 bedrooms essentially.
Well, 2 plus an office, and then.
So, and I think we talked about last time too, right? If you have a basement and a 1.5-story dwelling, like you could technically have 5 bedrooms or whatever, space enough for 5 bedrooms, right? Like, and a lot of people, if they're looking for housing and they're in desperate need, they're just going to sleep in the basement, whatever, throw a bed down there anyways, right? So, well,
and you'll see that a lot with like refugees, people from other countries, where they're used to incredible density compared to here, and like to them, it's warm, it's dry, it's clean. Like, I'll sleep there.
You have a 20 by 30 basement.
Yeah, we can, like the whole family will sleep there, right?
20 beds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So different expectations. So I think the point is design is important.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it is important, and it's often overlooked or minimized or whatever. And it doesn't have to be that expensive to design. Like, you're going to build this thing anyways, whether you pour the concrete like this or that. It could have a big impact long term because, trust me, it's really tough to move concrete or alter concrete once it's poured. We've had multiple experiences about that. You pour it and it's like, you know what? That's not good. Who's going to chip that out? That's a lot of, Anyways, I don't want to talk about that because...
What are the 3 rules about concrete?
I don't know.
Like, 1, it's going to crack.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the first... Well, that's number 2. The first one is like it's going to be solid or it's going to stay.
Yeah.
And the third one is nobody's going to steal it.
Yeah. No, concrete's good, but you had to be... This is where, like, the permanence of something... If you're going to build something nice and durable, right? Like... even the wall construction, you could put up something like really, really cheap, really quick, 2x4 and a thing, I'm done. Or you could, hey, it's going to be a bit bigger, it's more insulation, it's going to have some like vapor barrier. And now there's like passive housing. So you're going to have like, minimize or like maximize your insulation, minimize air transfer, and like completely seal this thing off. And, or you could go all the way to like a super crazy construction where you're maximizing efficiency and looks and everything, right? But if you're doing it anyways, like the extra dollars for something, but where I was going with this, if you're going to spend more on the construction because you want something to last a long time, then the cost of like changing certain little things about it that might improve it from an aesthetic point of view or like a user experience kind of view, or like even the value of what you could charge for rent. Like all it is a stroke of the pencil in the right spot, and now the thing is that much different and that much better, right?
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Design's important.
Design's important.
All right. Well, maybe we'll wrap this one up there. And
yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, we can finish her off on the next episode.
We'll keep you updated as we build this ADU maybe. And
yeah, for sure. We'll do some
pictures
update episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be cool.
All right, Mark.
Thank you, Brent. And thank you, listeners, for listening. Hopefully you made it here. And until next time.
Steward your wealth wisely. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Two Stewards Show. If you like my voice better, click subscribe.
And if you like my voice better, click share.
If you like both, give us a 5-star rating.
To interact with the show, feel free to reach out at hello@twostewards.ca.
We'll see you in the next episode. In the meantime, steward your wealth wisely.